This an all-out blitz, real hard hits, them other podcast trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Texans Fan Battle Podcast. I'm one of your hosts today, Matthew Briggs. And as always with me, I have part of the amazing trio, but Crenshaw's out right now, so it's the dynamic duo until he gets here. I got Mr. VT. Say what's up to the folks.
What's going on, guys?
And guys, we got a special guest in the house tonight. If you listen to 610, you hear him. Shaun, I don't want to murder your last name, so why don't you tell everybody your last name?
Shaun Bijani, man. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, thanks for coming on. Well, let's kick it off with some NFL news. First off, we got some sad news around the NFL. Hall of Famer Franco Harris passed away, famously known for the catch, Pittsburgh Steeler. Shaun, I'll start with you. What did it hit you hard? What was your thoughts about it?
It was tough. You know, he's one of the most recognizable faces amongst, the Hall of Famers. He's a guy that really hasn't, shied away from the camera. And rightfully so. You know, a lot of people around the country, football people, paid attention to him. That catch in 1972, that was the original the catch in the NFL before Montana to Dwight Clark just 10 years later. And, a play like that, respective to its sport, it was every bit as big as the original catch in terms of the sports world, with Willie Mays making that catch in Game 1 of the 1954 World Series at the old Polo Grounds. And when you think of, the greatest plays in regards to the respective sport, I think of exactly that. Franco Harris's immaculate reception. I think of Montana to Clark. I think of Michael Jordan's last shot ever as a Chicago Bull in Game 6 against the Jazz in the finals. I think of, all of those things. And it's crazy when you think about catches, right? We've seen a lot of fantastic plays made just in the last handful of years in the NFL. But in terms of the stage, who it was, what it meant, that is a play that will go down not just in NFL history, but just in the history of sports as one of the greatest things, one of the greatest moments, particularly obviously for Steeler fans. Very cool, and yeah, obviously very sad for Franco Harris. Just 72, and with all respects, still pretty young guy. Good-looking guy. Somebody that you're used to seeing speak regularly each and every year around the Hall of Fame game and things like that. So, yeah, difficult loss for the world of football.
BT, what about you? I'll kick it off to you, man.
I think what's important, is a lot of younger folks may not really understand what he means. And so I'm in a couple of different group chats on Twitter and so forth, and I thought it was important for people to at least acknowledge what the immaculate reception was, how he was famous and what he meant to the community. So I did post that. NFL Films did a great job. It's a short 5-minute film. For the younger crowd that listens to us, it's worth it to go ahead and check out that 5-minute film, at least on that play, and then check out some of his history as well.
Yeah, I just noticed today he was one of the driving forces behind the terrible towels. So, that's I never knew that. So, that's, he changed the culture down there in Pittsburgh. Everybody behind the steel curtain. It's sad to hear that he passed away. So, prayers to him and his family and friends, especially around this time. Man, it's hard to lose somebody. So, Like last year was Madden. Now this year is Franco. So it's tough. Well, moving on. Before we get to the Texans and Chiefs, we got, like you said before the show starts on. There's some big storms coming in. The Bills and BT. Who are they playing?
Bears.
The Bills and the Bears. It's supposed to be like a -9 degree with a 13-mile wind happening. Big old tornado bomb down there. Shaun, what you think it's going to be fun, or you think it's going to be a complete crap show?
You know what? I don't care what the game looks like, man. As long as they're playing the thing in frigid, temperatures. I was impressed, the other day in Buffalo after seeing the pregame shots with all the snow on the bleachers and the field. I had no clue they would clean the entire field. I mean, you couldn't even tell it snowed unless they showed a shot of the bleachers. So, which, by the way, I was really disappointed in, because I think from an optics standpoint, I mean, you want to see them play in those elements. And, it was pretty cool to see late in that Buffalo Bills game the other day, the flurries start to hit. So I really don't care about the way the game looks or anything like that. As long as they're playing, football's football. All football, sometimes it's a stretch with the way the Texans play, is good football.
Right. VT, what about you, man?
I think one of the things that we're going to see if this happens is they're saying there could be 40-mile gusts of wind. That's obviously going to change the game plan. You've got to run the ball more. So that obviously works in Chicago's favor. So I think this could be a down and dirty, just on the ground type of game if that actually happens. So that's how I think it's going to affect the actual football game. What I will say, just because we referenced Miami and Buffalo, the one thing I was disappointed, though not really unexpected, was how many fans were just pelting players. Now, players got protection on, they got helmets on, but the refs don't. The people on the sideline, the coaches and so forth don't. And I understand, you're drunk and you're rooting for your team. But man, these are ice bombs. These aren't just snowballs, man. You got to have a little bit of respect for the people out there. So that's all I want to say about that.
Man, I tell you, those Bills fans, they're just built differently, aren't they? Like, it's -9 and they have no T-shirts on, throwing each other through tables. Like, that table has to feel like a piece of iron being that cold. I would never understand. Like, if a Bills fan passes away, we need to dissect his brain to see like what makes him tick, because it'd be a great cause for science. Because man.
Everyone is used to the cold weather as they should be. They should also be used to composing themselves, even in a drunken state, in that kind of weather. I mean, everybody for the most part's got to be liquored up to stand in the bleachers with no shirt on, and even if you're bundled up and dressed to, you got like 5-6 layers of clothing on, you're probably still sauced up to a degree, and you got to be able to compose yourself. I mean. It's maybe funny for a millisecond, but then, you realize, as you put it, VT, ice bombs, coming at you. It's never a good thing. An ice bomb is probably just about as dangerous as a battery being thrown at you. And the Raiders fans can tell you something about that in the last 20 years.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. So moving on, Adam Schefter earlier this week, or kind of later last week, made an announcement that the NFL has told all owners to kind of watch your hiring when it comes to coaches, because they wasted $8 million. Shaun, I'll start with you. A lot of fans say this is fake. A lot of them don't care. Is this something that we need to keep an eye on?
In terms of the hiring practices of owners?
Yeah. Well, that the NFL said something. A lot of fans believe it's a fake, that the NFL didn't tell the owners this.
I wouldn't consider myself a conspiracy theorist, but I do believe that multi-billion-dollar a year businesses operate in a completely different circle than most of us could even fathom. And so, in that regard, when there's so much money at stake, and optics is a thing, and the NFL should absolutely care about it. I mean, you could almost throw anything up against the wall, and I really wouldn't be shocked by that. The hiring practices of teams in the NFL with the Rooney Rule and the cynical nature in which people look at that. Obviously, it was brought in under, understandable reasons years ago. I just wouldn't put anything beyond the NFL in terms of, private discussions and a wink and a nod here and there. So, we might be experiencing another head coaching hire. In fact, I think we absolutely should be experiencing another head coaching hire here in the city of Houston, which is going to be an interesting follow in the optics from that standpoint of view, in which Nick Caserio presumably will be allowed to hire a third head coach during his tenure in less than 3 years. That's going to be interesting. And especially, this is something that's going to be talked about quite a bit, the nature of who he hires from a cultural standpoint. Is it going to be, another black coach? And there are quite a few deserving candidates out there, probably none other more than D'Amico Ryans and Eric Bieniemy, to list them in no particular order. So it's going to be an interesting follow here in the coming months.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you mentioned the whole Texans getting rid of their coaching staff. Andy Reid, after the game, we'll just jump into the Texans. Andy Reid said something that was kind of, surprising. He pretty much said that Lovie Smith is doing a great job with the Texans and that we should give him some time. What's your thoughts on that, Shaun?
Well, I was really surprised, to be honest with you, when I heard those comments, and I didn't hear them live because when he'd made those, I'm literally standing outside of the Texans locker room waiting for the PR staff to let us in to go talk to the players. And I caught it later after I went up back to the press box, and I caught those comments on social media. I was like, wow, what was the impetus there? I mean, right. I didn't know they had a particularly strong relationship or a close relationship. And, when we asked Lovie Smith about that this past Monday, he said he wasn't aware of those comments made by Andy Reid, and just that they'd spoken before the game and they have a good relationship, but sort of downplayed it, as I would expect he would. I just found that really surprising that he would be getting that sort of vote of confidence from a guy like Andy Reid. And Patrick Mahomes didn't say those words exactly, but also had some favorable words for Lovie Smith in terms of what kind of coach he is, what kind of teams you can expect a Lovie Smith type team to, how they're coached. So I was a little surprised, but I guess at the end of the day, I shouldn't be. I mean, these are two guys that have a pulse on the what's going on, I guess, around the NFL world. People are talking. I think maybe that's really the focus more than anything, is for, two guys that are perennial Super Bowl contenders to be concerning themselves with a 1-12-1 head coach and feel the need to give them that sort of vote of confidence is kind of interesting to me. I don't think it's a similar sentiment shared throughout the city, maybe certainly the league, but it's been a long many years, guys, since Lovie Smith, you could call him a accomplished head coach in the NFL. He certainly had some good years in Chicago, but also was a part of some questionable decisions. And we know the lack of success that he had at Illinois while spending 5 years in the college level. Obviously, his last 2 years in the NFL before he took over with the Houston Texans in Tampa Bay was nothing to, throw a party over or anything like that. So, look, Lovie's a good guy. And I think if the Texans would have experienced a little bit more success under his watch, that we'd be talking about some of the more positive things in his character, what he brings to this team as
and the culture. He brings a lot of culture to the team.
100%. And that's what I was going to point to, the culture that he's created, which hasn't been an easy job, the positive nature in which he just has that ability, whether you can call it, I've called it this before, a grandfatherly type figure in the locker room, but also somebody that has kind of been there, done that, seen everything you can possibly see in the NFL over so many years. he just commands that level of respect, particularly with younger players. But he's also coached some really good veterans in his time. So it's no surprise to me that guys like Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes, guys that had been around a little bit longer, Brandon Cooks, do respect him to the degree and talk about him as highly as they do and have this season. I never thought he was long for the job. I've used this term before. I think it's been a systematic tank. I think he was a better person to take the lead for such a venture as opposed to David Culley. And he's been more of a presidential type figure for the Texans to handle the media this season. And I just, best of luck to him. And I just don't think he's long for this job.
Okay. Well, late, but at least he's here. Crenshaw, bro, let me get your take on it. What do you thought about the whole Andy Reid? And I didn't hear about Patrick Mahomes, but I guess Patrick Mahomes has something to say about it. What's your thoughts?
What was the question?
And what Andy Reid said on Lovie Smith, that we should give him time and he's a great head coach.
I think they're just Andy, just backing up a coach, but I think Andy Reid is wrong, and we don't need to give Lovie no more time. He's done good these 2 years, but we need to move on if the franchise want to be successful. We need to find that coach that the fans, the media, just the whole NFL can respect. Yes, Lovie's respected, but years ago, we need that it factor, because I'm tired of not having a direction for the squad. I need a direction. I need to know what Nick Caserio is going to do with this team. So, Lovie, I love you, bro. I love you, Beard, but you got to go.
BT, kick it off with you. What you got?
So, I've said that I want both Lovie and Pep to go. My last article was named "Sometimes Divorce is a Good Thing." So you probably know where I stand. However, the conversation has been changing. It was Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes that did talk about how well Lovie was doing, but the conversation changing just based on our colleagues, like all the Texans, different podcasts, and so forth, and not just locally, nationally. People are saying to give them time. So you got Locked On Texans saying that. You've got some of the NFL Network guys saying that. I actually do believe that they will give him more time. Not that I want him to, but I think they will end up doing it, because you also have that PR side, right? The last two games, we essentially stood up to the last minute, in the last 40 seconds, you could say, if you talk about the Cowboys games, to Super Bowl contenders. And for a large part of that has been the defense making really good plays. Yes, we have issues on our run defense. Yes, we have issues with missed tackles. But people are beginning to believe that Lovie isn't the issue. I think a lot more people do believe that Pep is the issue, and that I think they will get rid of Pep. But I think that, when you fire a black head coach who has experience in the NFL, never a head coach, but only a position coach, then you get someone who has been a head coach before and you fire him, I think you're going to have that same PR issue of people saying, is the Texan organization racist? This is what we had to do with last offseason. I don't think Cal wants to deal with it again.
Okay. Well, I agree with everything, but I don't think Pep goes if Lovie stays. I think he'll stay. I think they are a package deal. So, well, let's kick it off. Texans versus Chiefs. Like VT said, it was to the wire, 30-24. VT, I kick it off with you. What was your thoughts of the game?
So my thoughts on the game was I thought this was going to be a blowout. But, I've been wrong here thinking about this, because obviously the Cowboys game wasn't a blowout, and I was on the edge of my seat for that game in the last 40 seconds. We took the Chiefs to overtime. These are guys that obviously are Super Bowl contenders. They've won a Super Bowl already. Patrick Mahomes didn't necessarily have his best day. Our pass rush was strong. Laramie Tunsil, who's just became a Pro Bowler. By the way, congratulations, Laramie. And I just got to sneak this in there. If he doesn't become All-Pro, we all riot. But he didn't let us sack. The whole O-line actually jived. Moving Howard over to guard seemed to work. There was no degradation in quality in terms of pass protection by putting Heck out to right tackle. So we did a decent job. What I think of the game was, I'll go back to Pep here. Once you know that the whole XFL style QB by committee thing wasn't working, it was time to move on. The only reason why it worked at all in the Cowboys game is because you caught them off guard. We didn't catch them off guard here. He brought in Allen, and all we did was lose it down. He didn't do anything to help the game, and Pep still has the same mentality that he has every game. Let's just keep going with it. Let's keep going with it. There was a chance where we could have possibly won here, but I'm going to blame Pep, as I have been for much of the season. But I do think it's something worth note that we took a Super Bowl contending team to overtime for them to beat us, and then let a lot of run defense let us down, though.
Yeah. All right. Well, Crenshaw, what about you? What was your thoughts? You're on mute, bro. You got it.
Well, VT, you said that was a bad game on Mahomes. Well, I'll take that game every week from my quarterback.
Right.
He was 36 for 41, man, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a pretty good game.
And ran one in too.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good game by him. I feel like the defense kept us in the game. Defense got turnovers, gave Davis Mills short field. Davis Mills, he didn't do much, but he didn't make mistakes, and that's the reason why the game went to overtime. Usually Mills making mistakes, like before he got benched, he had 7 interceptions in 5 games. So as long as he don't make mistakes, this team's going to be good. Overall, I feel like Mills' performance, it was mid. It was okay. I'm not gonna make too much of it. I need to see him do it, multiple weeks before I pat him on the back. But overall, I like how the guys was flying to the ball. They was getting after Mahomes. They was, making him think about it. It was a great game. I mean, I'm not gonna blame it really on Pep. We just lost to a better team, a better coach, a better organization. But overall, it was a great game, and O-line's been doing a great job. If Driscoll didn't go out of bounds, we would have had 3 straight games with no sacks. I don't know what the hell he was doing right there. But other than that, I mean, I love what they're doing, and I hope they could do better against Tennessee.
All right, Shaun. Before I let you give me your takes, did you think that the referees helped us a little bit?
In that Kansas City Chiefs game?
Yeah.
I thought it was actually a pretty well refereed game. However, the defensive pass interference calls that the Texans benefited from, I think in 2 out of the last 3 drives, if I recall correctly, I thought, man, they could have gone either way. There were some pretty soft calls. I think it was one particularly on Jordan Akins. It was just like a brief little tug of a jersey, and it was arguable that it was even outside of the 5-yard contact zone. So, I guess you could make that argument, certainly. It wouldn't be the first time that the Texans failed to capitalize on something like that though this season.
Right. All right. Well, tell us what's your text of the game. What do you thought? What was
I thought VT and Crenshaw both made some really, really strong points. Particularly, VT, if I can kind of go back to that goal line situation, or the red zone situation, rather, on that Texans drive they had in the 4th quarter where they settled for the field goal to tie it up at 24. I thought Pep Hamilton, again, single-handedly stifled a Texans drive that should have, or at least could have, ended in a touchdown. And I'd rather had seen, Pep Hamilton give the keys to the car completely to Davis Mills, as he seemingly had throughout that drive. I mean, Lovie Smith has made an argument a number of times this season, and particularly early in the year when the Texans, had a chance to tie into or win a game late, seemingly every week, with the exception of that week 2 blowout. And I can't remember who it was against, but we got the brakes blown off of us 41-3 in that game, where he pointed to, hey, Davis gave us a chance. We were driving, and then there was an interception, or there was a fumble, or there was some sort of mistake, a false start. Remember, Laramie Tunsil had one of those late in games that cost the Texans at one point in time. But they had that opportunity. I thought this was all about growth. I thought it was all about improving. And then you're going to take a guy out in the red zone when he has an opportunity to build some confidence and put a stamp on a drive that he orchestrated, a 15-play, 75-yard drive, and they took the keys away from him. And they put Driscoll in, and it stifled the drive. That was on 1st down, but it was an important down. So I think that was a really good point by VT. Crenshaw made a good point too. I mean, there were so many of them right now. One's slipping my mind. I'll just say, to me, Lovie Smith and Pep Hamilton did themselves no favors. Don't look at these last two games with blinders on, because while they stood up to stiffer competition, they also have a way of mucking games up when they're not turning the ball over. This team, they can play physical. They've shown it before already this season. They were amongst the tops in creating turnovers through the first month of the year. And then, you know, I don't really know what happened. I don't know if it was a coverage issue. I don't know if it was the way that teams were choosing to attack them, exploiting them with a run defense, a poor run defense, and they were just running the ball instead of just throwing it so much. I was surprised that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid came with the game plan of, hey, let's throw it more out of the gate than expose a porous run defense. I thought that was a fail on their part. I thought it was a fail on their part to not throw the ball late and step on the throat of the Texans on their final drive in regulation. Thought they had the opportunity to do that there. And again, some way, somehow, the Texans just benefit from some bonehead decisions from the opposition. But then, two, it's a further indictment on Lovie Smith and Pep Hamilton for misusing their personnel, not really doing the things necessary to, I guess, for the lack of a better term, take advantage of playing with house money. 8 seconds on the clock at halftime, and you're going to take a knee. You've got great field position. Like, let's go out and try to do something. You had a timeout at your disposal. Try to get a quick play on the sideline. Set yourself up for a 55-yard field goal or something. Kaimi's kicked one or two of those already this season, and dude's on a roll right now. Don't pretend you're somebody that you're not. And I think Lovie Smith feels like this team is better than they actually are. And the weird part about it is he might be right, but you're 1-12-1. If you can knock off some stiff competition, then you have to do everything you possibly can. And it's probably, I guess, negligent for me to even think that way, because I think the tone was set on how he was going to manage this team from week one when he punted for a tie instead of going for a win for a team and organization that was already set up and expected to fail.
I see that. I kind of agree with you and BT just a little bit. I'm not mad about the whole Jeff Driscoll experiment, but everybody and their mama knows what's going to happen. When Jeff Driscoll comes, they know what's going to happen. So let him throw the ball. And if you don't want to do that, Davis Mills he proved it Sunday when he ran that touchdown. If you want to do something, if you want him to do something like do that with Mills, switch it up. Don't keep doing the same, like BT, same thing over and over again. Oh, well, we're just going to go with it. And man, you got to be proud. We had Brandon Cooks, Damian Pierce, Green, Stingley. We had a whole bunch of people out, and we almost beat, like I said, I think if we had Damian Pearson, it'd be a different game. I think we win. But, it just doesn't happen in the NFL.
Well, you mentioned Damian Pierce. That was really the thing that hit me the wrong way the first month of the season, is that you knew from the preseason what you had in Damian Pierce. Like, the guy just kind of looked special. In limited carries, the guy just looked special. You don't see running backs come along like that all the time. And so forget about where the hell that he was drafted. I mean, you saw the guy had some wiggle. You saw he ran angry, and he had success in doing so. And he, I think, was really making that offensive line look maybe better than they really are early in the season with some of those runs. Now, granted, he's also a very patient guy too. And so the line early in the season, if you guys remember, and even when he had that breakout game, that 75-yard run, that was on a play that he'd said failed time and time again in practice, and they decided to roll with it in a game, and the blocks just set up perfectly. He was patient enough to wait for that line to get to the second level, follow his blocks, and then do what he does, which is gain yards after contact. But he was not on the field in high leverage situations, not once through the first 4 games of this season. Not once was he on the field in the fourth quarter inside 6 minutes when the game was on the line, when the stage was the biggest, when the lights were the brightest. And I thought that is a clear indictment on Lovie Smith. I think another clear indictment on Lovie Smith is the way that he's underutilized Derek Stingley, and he won't get that chance back this season. He's done for the year. Played soft zone coverage with arguably one of the better man-to-man cover guys coming out of college this last year. And it kind of chaps me that he's constantly being compared to Sauce Gardner, who does have that opportunity, who is playing for a better team, a better coordinated defense in New York. And so when you grade Derek Stingley, just keep those things in mind, that his real strong skill set was not utilized to its full potential this season. I talked about it on the show probably for 2 hours today with Clint Sterner. And him and I do agree. It might have sounded like we were disagreeing at times, but it's because we're so impassioned by this situation with Lovie Smith and how egregious some of the play calls and personnel decisions have been by him. And whoever is the guy behind the puppet strings, I think it's Nick Caserio. It's just been a bad look and makes it more disappointing, if that's even possible, for a team you already knew was tanking. You just didn't know exactly how it was going to shake down this season.
Well, yeah, definitely going back to the Dameon Pierce talk against the Cowboys. Like, yeah, he had that fumble, and I think that's Lovie has that mindset. Oh, you fumbled, so we're gonna kind of like Andy Reid does. If you fumble, he did that with Pacheco. We're not gonna run. Like, I don't care if he fumbles. You're in the red zone. The dude's hot. He's running the ball down your throat. Get in the end zone. Help you score. Like, the only way he can make up for it is you give him another chance. So don't take the ball away from him. Give it to him more. Like, that's the only way you're going to learn to hold on to the ball is mistakes. So quit pulling him and let him run the ball. I mean,
and you know, the thing is with Dameon is he's got that amnesia. You know, he's such a cerebral player. I won't even say that. Like, he's a smart player. Don't get me wrong. He's been able to make adjustments through, blitz pickup, pass protection, his vision, throughout the season. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is he's got that amnesia where that stuff doesn't bother him. He's so forward thinking, on to the next play already. A lot of guys will, take some hard contact or have somebody else, in the case of the Cowboys, fumble, come up behind him and punch the ball out. There's nothing you could do about those sort of things. It doesn't mean you're not holding on to the rock the right way. It just means, the guy made a better play. Yeah. And unfortunately, you fell victim to that. He's on to the next play. Yeah, you're right. Give him the rock. But you know what? Lovie Smith did that earlier this season after Pierce fumbled. I think it was actually his first fumble of the year.
Maybe the Jaguars game, and he scored a touchdown for the win.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And so I like that part about Lovie. I just think, kind of similarly to the way that we've seen him treat Davis Mills, he has a tendency and has had a tendency to do that with Dameon Pierce too early. And you've got to trust your dudes and recognize the fact that, you know what? DP is that dude. If he makes a mistake, chances are, if I'm making the same mistake again, slim to none.
All right. Oh, well, guys, before we're going to touch base real quick on the Tennessee game, but before we do, we all, like I told you earlier, Tom, and these guys know, I live up here in Chiefs country, and oh my man, did I hear about it all day about the Malik Collins hit. Let me get each of y'all real quick. Do y'all think that was a dirty hit? Yes or no? Shaun, do you think that was a dirty hit?
Oh, I'm sorry. Which hit?
Malik Collins on Patrick Mahomes, where you sacked him and he threw him down.
Oh, no. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, he didn't lead with any helmet, and he didn't grab him by the helmet and sling him down. I mean, he had a good firm hold of his upper body. But that was a little bit different. I'm trying to think. Probably the impetus for your question there is a play that happened recently within the last week or two. Somebody slinging a quarterback down, and I can't think of who that was. Can you help me refresh my memory?
Yeah, they called a flag on it too for roughing the passer, but
it was a bad one, man. It was a really, really bad one. And so
now you're saying I can't remember, but yeah, I remember what you were talking about. Yeah.
No,
I'm glad they didn't call a flag on it.
It was, I think was it the Chargers game?
Yes, it was the Chargers. Chargers, yep.
Yeah, who was the opposing quarterback though? Because that wasn't Herbert that got slung down. I don't think, right?
I think it was Tua. I think it was the Chargers and the Dolphins.
There you go. There you go. I think that was Tua that got tossed to the ground like a rag doll. But no, I thought Collins just made an incredibly physical play. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is going to try to lobby for a flag there. I mean, what quarterback wouldn't? The only other person that I can think of that would have probably tried to sell that a little bit better is Tom Brady.
Right. Chris, always out. Yes or no? Green hit?
Yeah, it was a good hit. I mean, he fumbled the ball and he just caught him off guard. I'm just surprised they didn't throw the flag because that's Patrick Mahomes. So I was actually really, really shocked. And after that play, I knew the refs was on our side.
BT, real quick, what do you think? Yeah?
Yeah, I think it was a clean hit. I think that it was surprising that they didn't throw a flag. But I will say this, though. You had that happen all day, whether it was Petrie or not. I mean, we were very physical, right? We were throwing down Juju. Tremont Smith body slammed Juju, right? So I mean, we were physical, and all day long, Kansas City was straight flag. I mean, so I'm glad we got those dogs.
I will say this to that point real quick. Maybe a good reason why, and it's a heads up and, tip of the cap to the referees, why they didn't throw a flag on that Collins hit on Mahomes is because he's declared a runner at that point in time. So it's a little bit different than just, him, being back in the pocket and still a quarterback, a thrower in that instance. He was a runner. And so I think that was probably more of a heads up call by the referees. And I know you asked a question, hey, were they a little bit more favorable to the Texans? Hey, you know what? Maybe that's another case in point in favor of that argument, but I think it was absolutely the right no call.
All right. Well, guys, we play divisional rival, the Tennessee Titans. Shaun, what do you think the expectation of this game and the score prediction will be of this game?
Man, it's interesting because
Tannehill has been ruled out, so that they're plagued by injuries. So
yeah, Tannehill's ruled out. He might be done for the season. I think he probably is. That's why the Titans claim Joshua Dobbs off the Lions practice squad today. So he'll be Malik Willis's backup. You remember how bad Malik Willis looked against the Texans in that 17-10 Titans victory. Granted, Derrick Henry ran for 219 on the Texans. But to do a prediction, it's tough. I knew you were going to ask me about it, so I'm going to kind of try to work through it a little bit. Obviously, it's going to be the cold weather factor. I think game time temp's supposed to be like 5 or 9 degrees, something ridiculous like that. Beyond a certain point, cold is just cold. It could be 19, it could be 9, it could be -5. I don't know how your body tells the difference. It just sucks. So I don't think everybody's got to play in the cold weather, and nobody's ever really used to it. I talked to Blake Cashman earlier today, who's from Minnesota, spent his entire life up there before, becoming a New York Jet. It's not like he went to a warmer state to that organization. He was like, dude, you don't ever get used to that. Cold is cold. So in terms of like the Titans, this is the interesting thing, man. I don't believe in Malik Willis. I don't think that anybody really should, but the dynamic that you do have to respect is that he's another mobile quarterback. While he wasn't able to get loose on the Texans to the degree that he would have liked, and I don't think that Vrabel would have liked, you have to respect it. And the Texans have struggled, with mobile quarterbacks. I think much less lately. Patrick Mahomes got loose on the Texans a little bit, certainly, but I think that was really more of a coverage issue. Granted, the Texans, why would I expect them to change what they do defensively with their soft zone coverage and leave themselves susceptible to that? Well, maybe for the fact that you don't have to guard against Patrick Mahomes, picking you apart with the intermediate throws and taking deep shots. Malik Willis won't do that. So I would expect the Titans to really try to run the ball heavy, but I also anticipate the Texans, regardless if they have Brandon Cooks available or not, I kind of think he's checked out. Hopefully they do have Chris Moore. I like what I saw from Royce Freeman. If they continue with this, duo quarterback system and just leave enough of an element of surprise or preparation on behalf of the Titans and get that same, angry running from Royce Freeman that you saw all season with Dameon Pierce, essentially what you're doing is you're taking time off of the clock and you're keeping the Titans offense off of the field. And that is a recipe for success. So if they can do that, and I wouldn't anticipate a blowout, I actually would kind of be shocked if, in fact, this wasn't the game and the Texans didn't have another opportunity to tie or go win this one late.
All right. Crenshaw, what about you? What do you think? We winning?
Um, it's tough to say. I mean, they beat us last time, and Willis on throwing one pass in the second half. And we didn't much run the ball good, and we still was right in the game. I'm gonna give it to Tennessee because we on the road, but it's not gonna be a blowout. It's gonna be another tough game, and I agree with Sean. It's going to be close at the end. I mean, like I say, Lawrence Mills don't make the mistakes, man. We're gonna be right there. We're gonna be right there to win it, and then unless Pep, beat Pep, you know. But I say Tennessee winning, and I think that might be the game to secure the #1 seed right there.
Okay. BT, what you got?
So, yes, Tannehill is out, but so is their starting center. So they're going to have some issues right up there. Malik Willis had 6 passes against us, completed 6 passes against us last game. So, yeah, he's not going to be throwing a lot. Derrick Henry is obviously their offense, essentially. What's interesting in the past couple games, even though he has had more than 100 yards, they seem to be stopped running him later in the fourth quarter. Now, I don't know if that's because of game planning, if that's because he can't do it because something wrong with his health, stamina, I don't know. But it seems like something's there where these games, like especially these close games that come down to the fourth quarter, I think we may have a shot if they aren't able to run with Derrick Henry. So I think we have a shot there. Now, I know Chris Moore, it seems like he's out, right? Because he didn't practice for 2 days in a row because his foot. It looks like Cooks is coming back, and I understand, Sean, that you think he's checked out, and as do I. However, I think he's now playing to get traded to a team that he actually wants to go to. So he's playing for something now. He's not playing just for a win for the Texans. He's playing for another job. So I think he may actually step up here because he's selfish, and selfishly he wants to go somewhere. So I think that we will have Cooks out there. We won't have Collins. But we'll have Amari Rodgers. So I think that even though we're pretty decimated in terms of injuries, I think we can eke out a win. I would say that we're looking at a 17-14 win here. It's not going to be a heavy offensive run. I think we will run the ball with Royce. Royce looked pretty good last game. So I think that we will run it with Royce, and I think we'll eke out a win. I think this will be our last win of the season. And I know that there's a lot of people like Landry Locker who want to just win. Want to just lose so we can actually get the first overall pick. And I know that he even said, like, we might win, but that's actually a loss. I mean, this is what Landry Locker, we go back and forth every once in a while. But I think we actually eke out a win, and we'll still get the first overall pick because I don't think we will beat the Colts or the Jags. So I'm saying Texans win, book it. I think Vegas has also changed some of the numbers as well to favor us a little more than they just did a couple of days ago. So I think it's moving in that direction. And so go Texans, we win.
You could win this game. You could win 3 games and the Bears not win another game this season, and you're still going to get the #1 overall pick. So losing at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. So whatever Landry wants, Landry wants. He's an interesting kind of a dude. I'm not going to pretend to try to know how he thinks and get inside of his head. But so you win. The key here, it's so much less about the Texans and more about the Titans and Jaguars. And this makes the Jaguars game against the Jets tomorrow night so much more interesting. Mm-hmm. Because of the quarterback situation with the Titans, the way that they've been playing. They've lost 4 games in a row. The Jags have won 2 straight, and they've got quality wins against some good opponents this season. That Raiders victory earlier this year looked a little bit better then than it does now, but they still beat the Chargers. They're coming off of victories against the Titans,
the
Cowboys last week. Granted, you still don't know who the hell they are. They just got their brakes blown off 3 weeks ago by the Detroit Lions. Right. But that's also another team that's on the rise, winners of 6 of their last 7. But, I mean, my gosh, I want the Texans to win just because I want that Titans and Jaguars game, the final day of the season, to actually mean something. Not just something, but mean everything.
Yeah. To me, this game's about evaluation. Like, you need to evaluate every player you have on the roster, because it's time to cut, slit throats. Like, you're off on team, you're trading, you're keeping. Like, it's time to see what you got. We mentioned the center, the quarterback. they got a lot of pieces out on the defense as well. Like, but I don't think Bud Dupree's going to play. Kristen Fulton's still out. The guy they signed from Virginia Tech, the guy with back injuries, I can't think of his name, but he's out. There's a lot of key players on the defense. So I say we win this. I'm going to say 20-14. So Texans. So.
Yeah, Texans do have a tendency to win some games in extremely cold weather. I'll never forget that game in the inaugural season. Somehow they won in Pittsburgh and scored 27 points in doing so without an offensive score. That was, I think they got a special team score and maybe a couple pick sixes or something like that. And it was maybe a scoop and score.
That was, oh man, what was that coach's name?
Who for the Texans then? That was Don
Capers. Don Capers. Capers. Yeah, good brain fart. That was his revenge game because he came from the
Yeah, you're right. And that was the Aaron Glenn. I still got something left in the tank game.
Yeah. Oh, love me some Aaron Glenn. Yeah. Well, Shaun, before we let you go, you mind if we ask you a couple questions?
No, go right ahead, man.
Chris, I'll kick you off. You got a question for Shaun before we let him go?
Just got two questions. One, Shaun, if we do, well, most likely we're going to have the first overall pick. Who would you select and why? And do you like the tandem of Pierce and Royce Freeman next year to be the running back tandem?
Oh, man. After watching Freeman do his thing this past week, that's the first thing that came to mind. I could absolutely see a backfield consisting of Dameon Pierce and Royce Freeman. I don't think you need this large disparity in the style of running back. I think kind of like a quarterback, you want your backup to be very similar to the starter. They both run angry. They're both bigger bodied guys. They can take contact. They downhill runners. Freeman, for what limited carries that he was getting in the preseason, like Pierce, you could see something there. But really, I liked what I'd seen from all of the Texans backs. It's just what you're asking them to do in terms of blitz pickup, helping out with the offensive line, pass protection, the things that they're doing away from the football. I think Freeman and Pierce have both shown, propensity to catch balls out of the backfield and turn it up that way. So I like that. So yes, love it. Bryce Young, #1 overall pick. How could you not? And look,
Chris has been preaching that all year long. About week 4, he's been saying.
And look, I could hear arguments, for C.J. Stroud. And that's where it stops for me. I can't hear an argument for waiting on Caleb Williams. There's no such thing in waiting. Ask the New York Jets. Ask the New York Jets a couple of years ago how that worked out for them, missing out on Trevor Lawrence and accidentally winning a game late. So many things have to go right. And could you imagine from an optics standpoint what this city has already been through the last 3 years, the distrust that they have in this organization and the lone common denominator, presumably, that would still be around to orchestrate that, Nick Caserio. Having him roll into year 4 of a 6-year contract, absolutely not. So Bryce Young, and for all the obvious reasons, people are going to point at his size. There's no doubt about that. And I was actually going to try to do some homework on that sort of thing and look at the sleight of build relative, obviously as a quarterback, but looking at other positions that people said the same thing about, whether it be a receiver or a running back, and then kind of chart their success at the next level. I think I've got a lot of homework to do, but look, his maneuverability, his quick twitch, he has the total package. He can make throws from all angles, extend plays with his legs. I think the injury concern, just because of his sleight of build, is going to be one of the things that is a deterrent, at least how people are going to try to talk you off of the ledge from drafting Bryce Young #1 overall. But my #1 question is, I never know how to identify, and you're going to have to talk to Bill O'Brien, which is really odd and unique. That was his offensive coordinator. So that's going to be fun. But how many of his throws the last couple of years, are predetermined? I want to know what type of a quarterback he is in terms of being able to really read a defense, go through his progressions, and make those decisions in the course of a game. That's the difference, right? Because you have a quarterback here right now in Davis Mills, just in this system, That's what they do. They make predetermined throws. And you see when you're able to watch the all-22 how that can cost you and the opportunities that it takes away from you when you just don't sit in the pocket, when you actually have the time and you go through your progressions and you find that open receiver and you wait that millisecond for somebody to break off, plant that left foot or right foot, break off a post route and flash is open in the middle of the field. I want to know what kind of quarterback Bryce Young is from that standpoint. And beyond that, I think he's the best talent at quarterback that you could possibly get at the number 1 overall selection. And I hope they do it. I think they need to do it.
All right. BT?
So my question is, if we do change the coaching staff, some of the possible options are Ben Johnson. My personal preference would be Mike Kafka, but I don't necessarily know if we're that attractive as an option. I know that we have a lot of draft capital. We finally won't have a ton of dead cap. But I think a lot of the outside opinions, if you're not a Texans fan or a Texans reporter, is that we're unfortunately a dysfunctional organization. So I don't know if we can actually attract that. There should be around 6 head coach openings, if my math is right, this year, us being one of them. And I can see someone that's been successful turn around a team like Ben Johnson to get a head coach job that looks a little better than going to a organization like us. Do you think that there's a chance that we pick someone from college or some sort of quote unquote no-namer? One of the options that I threw out there was Josh Heupel. He has the number 1 offense in the nation, and I understand that doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL with the type of offense that he runs. But him and Hendon Hooker really broke some records there in Tennessee. Do you think he's an option, or if he's not, what other quote unquote no names do you think that we should be looking at as potential head coach hires?
So like as far as like no names go, I'm assuming you're throwing Ben Johnson into that category, maybe a Shane Steichen into that category. You mentioned Heupel. To me, Ben Johnson and Shane Steichen, people can call them no names, but their names have been brought up more and more here in recent weeks and months as in terms of being hot commodities and being looked at as head coaching candidates as, in 2023. I've looked pretty closely at Ben Johnson and Shane Steichen, particularly. Haven't looked really at Heupel. D'Amico Ryans is somebody I've looked at pretty closely. I think will be an option. I know there's a lot of people that will say, well, didn't he have a lawsuit against the Texans at one point in time? I have to go back and look, but quite uniquely, you generally aren't going to do that. As a rule of thumb from a business standpoint and an optics standpoint. I don't think the Texans were there. I think that was squashed. And I think because in terms of what that was in regards to, I don't think it's really going to be an issue. He's a hot commodity. I mean, he's orchestrated one of the best defenses and knows how to coach a defense. And granted, he's worked with a ton of injuries this year and still is fourth, one of the top defenses in the league. The way that they play is just fearless, it's aggressive, but it's controlled. It's smart. You could talk about his leadership qualities and all that stuff. I mean, that's, to me, in relation to what you actually need here in terms of a head coach and a defensive coordinator, is fluff. But D'Amico Ryans is one that intrigues me. I do think they could go, if I was to put a percentage on it, maybe 60-40, closer to 70-30, looking for a younger, innovative offensive mind at the college level. I think that's a possibility. But Ben Johnson is a guy, along with Shane Steichen, they haven't really bounced around a lot. They've kind of risen through the ranks slowly but surely. Ben Johnson a little bit faster, I think, than Steichen, just in terms of like maybe happenstance or a victim of circumstance, if you want to put it that way, for the lack of a better term. Maybe that's why I'd pump the brakes on a guy like Johnson, where why would he want to leave? His situation's pretty good right now, too. You can see the promise, with the offense that he's coordinated up there. And
it's getting better. It's getting better.
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, you exist in a league that has Patrick Mahomes. If not, he's probably coaching, an MVP candidate, is coaching an MVP candidate. Maybe not the MVP, unfortunately, because of Patrick Mahomes. But I just think, you have to look at it from the sense that this organization's never really done a lot of these things, so it's going to turn a lot of people off to that new way of thinking. But it's the way the NFL is trending. There's only so much innovation, and so maybe I get caught up in using that word a little bit too much. Football is football. There's only so many different things you can do, but it's about seeing a defense a little bit differently. And I think it was Ben Johnson who actually got his start. If you know this, correct me if I'm wrong. Got his start on the defensive side of the ball at the NFL level from a defensive assistant his first 2 years, and then started to rise through the ranks as an offensive assistant, a wide receiver coach, maybe a tight end coach, and assistant coordinator before getting this opportunity. That to me is very appealing because he's able to see the game through a different lens than, a lot of coordinators typically do.
Right.
And I like that. I think he deserves a hard look. I think Steichen deserves a hard look. Those three guys are my top three. If I'm looking for a new head coach right now today, I'm looking at Ryans, Steichen, and Ben Johnson.
All right. Well, Shaun, thank you again for coming on. Before the holidays is always a, hustle and bustle. So we appreciate it. Why don't you tell everybody where we can find you and all the stuff you got going on?
Today's ended a very busy day. So this week I'm filling in 2 to 6 on Sports Radio 610 with Clint Sterner. I'll be with him tomorrow and Friday. Next Monday, I'm in all week, Monday and Tuesday. I've got the morning show for Payne and Pendergast. I'll be actually hosting with John McClain, so that'll be fun. I've never actually done a show just with him. So
we're having him on January 11th. So.
Awesome. Well, good luck getting a word in edgewise with him, but it's also a good thing because the guy's just chock full of knowledge. But so that's Monday and Tuesday next week. And then Wednesday through Friday, I'm in for Landry Locker and John Lopez on In the Loop. It'll be myself and Brandon Scott. And the following week, I'll be on.
We're having Brandon Scott. We're having Brandon Scott next week.
There you go. You guys got it going on, man. So I appreciate the opportunity to come on, talk some ball with you guys. It was fun. Always enjoy it. I could do it all day, every day, but my 2.5-year-old boy probably wouldn't like that too much. He's been daddy and me. So I got to go play and eat dinner with him here pretty soon.
All right. Well, tell us where we can find you on social media.
Hey, I'm active on Twitter, Instagram, at Shaun Bijani. I cover the Texans daily. I'm in the locker room at every press conference when I'm not filling in, trying to put out as much quality content as I possibly can every single day, covering the Texans. I put a lot of Astro stuff out as well. I'll be looking closely at the Rockets and be following the Houston Cougar basketball team pretty exclusively once Texans season's over. So definitely check my stuff out there.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, Shaun, again, thank you for coming on, and have a good Christmas and happy holidays.
Hey, best to you guys too. I hope every one of y'all have an awesome Christmas. Best to you and your families, and definitely wrap your pipes. Do whatever you have to do. This stupid weather that we're about to have. Trust me, I know. I went 2 weeks last year without or 2 years ago without a hot water heater. So I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
Yep.
Most definitely, it's coming. Well, again, man, thank you. Have a good night.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Y'all take care.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. And Kershaw, tell us where we can find you pissing off those Mills fans.
BT. Okay. You can find me at Fifth Ward Crenshaw.
BT, where we can find you at, brother?
You can find me at Brown Chubby Bear on Twitter. You can find me on Chubby Brown Bear on Reddit. And you can find my latest blog post on TexansFanBattle.com. A quick note, I just want to say if you're not following Shaun Bijani, you really should, even if for nothing else, for one particular reason. Every morning when there's a practice, he's there. He shoots videos. So you might see a tweet from friends of the show like Aaron Wilson stuff or anyone else, but he actually shoots a video so you can see with your own eyes. So I appreciate that because I take a lot from it. Just want to throw it out there. But follow me, guys, and there'll be a new article on Friday.
All right. And you can find me at A1 Day One Texans. And you find the podcast at Texans Fan Battle. Make sure you get us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're not on Tinder, so don't swipe right, okay? But anywhere else you can find us, guys. Again, guys, have a very, I don't know how to say it, but have a very good holidays. Merry Christmas to you guys. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Like he said, stay safe. It's going to get cold, and hopefully we talk about a win. But BT, Crenshaw, I'm thankful for you guys for coming on. Couldn't do this without you. So
Thank you.
early Christmas present from you guys. All right, man. Any last words before we head out?
Merry Christmas and go Texans.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
All right.
Texans,
Have a good one,
Texans. All right.